The post office smelled like paper dust, old tape, and the kind of tired air that never fully refreshed. It was just after lunch, when the fluorescent lights felt especially unforgiving, bright enough to show every scuff on the tile floor, every fingerprint on the glass barrier, every wrinkle in people's patience. The line moved in tiny, resentful shuffles. A toddler cried somewhere near the back. A printer whined. A metal stamp thunked rhythmically like a bored heartbeat. Behind the counter, clerks moved with practiced efficiency. Faces neutral, voices clipped, motions automatic. The place ran on policy more than kindness. Malik Jordan stood with his shoulders relaxed, but his mind sharp, holding a small slip of paper with his P.O. box number written on it, even though he knew it by heart. Box 214. He wasn't here for something sentimental. Not a birthday card, not a check from Grandma. He was here for the package that was supposed to change everything. 3 months earlier, Malik had launched a small side business customizing camera stabilizers, rigs for content creators who couldn't afford the expensive pro gear but still wanted cinematic shots. He built the first prototypes on his kitchen table and tested them in his living room, filming slow pans across a cheap lamp like he was shooting a movie. He didn't have investors. He had overtime shifts, a notebook full of measurements, and a stubborn belief that if he made something good enough, the right people would notice. Last week, someone had noticed. A mid-size production company, white-owned, well-connected, had reached out after seeing Malik's demo video. They didn't talk to him like he was a genius. They talked to him like he was a potential vendor, which was still a win. They wanted one of his stabilizers shipped overnight to test on a shoot. If it worked, they'd place a bulk order. It wasn't fame, it wasn't a miracle, but it was a door. And Malik knew better than to assume doors stayed open on their own. The shipment had been tracked. The tracking page showed delivered. The delivery timestamp was yesterday at 10:17 a.m., scanned at the post office for P.O. box pickup. Malik had walked in last night, after work, and found nothing in box 214. So he came back this morning, calm, prepared, with receipts. He had the tracking number printed. He had screenshots. He had even saved the email thread with the company, because part of Malik's survival strategy was documentation. Not because he liked conflict, but because he'd learned that if you didn't keep evidence, people could turn your reality into a debate. The line inched forward. Malik watched the people ahead of him interact with the clerks. An older white woman complained about a magazine subscription. A white man in work boots shipped a box and cracked a joke. The clerk smiled for him. A small, quick smile, but a smile nonetheless. Malik kept his expression neutral. When it was his turn, he stepped up to the counter. The glass barrier between him and the clerk reflected his face faintly, like a ghost version of himself, watching the conversation. The clerk on duty was a white woman in her 40s, with a tight bun and reading glasses hanging on a chain. Her name tag read Denise. She looked like she'd been working through lunch for years. Denise didn't greet him. She just waited, eyes flicking to the next customer in line, as if Malik was a task to be cleared. Malik slid his paper under the gap. "Hi, I need help with a P.O. box delivery." Denise finally looked at him. "Box number 214. Denise typed something into her computer with 2 fingers, slow and precise, as if speed was an optional luxury. "Name on the box?" "Malik Jordan." Denise's eyes narrowed slightly, not aggressively, more like a reflex. She typed again. The keyboard clicks sounded sharp in the quiet. "What's the issue?" she asked. "My package shows delivered yesterday," Malik said, keeping his tone polite. "But it wasn't in my box. I'm trying to confirm where it went." Denise didn't ask for the tracking number. She didn't ask what kind of package. She didn't ask anything that suggested curiosity. She just leaned back slightly, glanced at the monitor and said, "If it's not in the box, it wasn't delivered to the box." Malik blinked once. The tracking says it was scanned for P.O. Box pickup at this location. Denise shrugged. Tracking isn't always accurate. Malt-like heat rose behind Malik's ribs. He kept his breathing steady. Could you check the back? Sometimes larger packages get held behind the counter. Denise stared at him like he'd asked her to rearrange the building. We don't just go rummaging, she said. If there's a parcel, we notify. Malik nodded slowly, as if he was agreeing, even though he wasn't. Okay, I'm just asking to verify. It was an overnight shipment. It's time-sensitive. Denise's lips tightened. Sir, we handle thousands of items. If you don't have it, you don't have it. There it was, a sentence that sounded factual, but felt final, like a door being closed in your face, while someone insisted you were imagining the doorway. Malik leaned slightly forward. Can you please look up the scan details? It should show where it was sorted. Box, hold shelf, or miss slot. Denise's eyebrows lifted. We don't print scan logs for customers. Malik kept his voice even. I'm not asking for anything private. Just the internal record of where the parcel was placed. Denise's gaze shifted past Malik toward the line, then back to him with a tired impatience that looked suspiciously like dismissal. You need to contact the sender and file a claim. Malik's fingers pressed lightly against the counter edge. I am the sender, he said, though it wasn't fully true. He had purchased the label through his account. I can file a claim, sure, but I'd rather find the package. Denise's eyes hardened. No package. 2 words. Clean. Sharp. Like a stamp. Malik's stomach tightened. Behind him the line sighed. Someone shifted weight dramatically. A white man muttered, Come on, man, like Malik was the reason the universe moved slowly. Malik felt the familiar pressure, the social gravity that tried to pull him into silence. The unspoken rule, don't make a scene. Don't be that guy. Don't confirm their stereotypes. But Malik had learned another rule too. If you leave without pushing back, you teach them they can do this again. He exhaled slowly and reached into his folder. He slid a printed page under the glass, tracking information with the delivery scan, time circled in pen. Delivered, Malik said gently. 10:17 a.m. It says, available for pickup, P.O. Box. That's not in transit. That's here. Denise glanced down for half a second, barely long enough to read. Then she pushed the paper back with a flat palm, as if it were something dirty. I told you, she said, voice crisp. Tracking can be wrong. Malik's jaw clenched. He loosened it on purpose. Could I speak with a supervisor? He asked. Denise's head tilted. Supervisor's busy. Can I wait? Malik asked. Denise leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice as if she were offering advice. Sir, I'm trying to help you. If you keep holding up the line, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside. Malik's heart beat once, heavy. Step aside. Same language, same script, different building. He looked at Denise, then at the line, then at the metal door behind the counter that led to the back room, the place where packages went to either be found or be forgotten. Malik didn't raise his voice. He didn't slam the counter. He didn't perform anger, even though anger was there, hot and justified. Instead, he used the weapon he trusted most, details. Denise, Malik said, reading her name tag like it mattered, if a parcel is scanned for P.O. Box pickup at this location, the system assigns it a container or shelf position, correct? Denise's mouth tightened. We don't discuss internal processes. Malik nodded slowly. Okay, but you do have access to the scan history, right? The event log, the acceptance scan, arrival scan, sorting scan, and final scan. Denise's eyes flickered. Just a tiny change. Not fear, not guilt. Something like irritation at being spoken to by someone who sounded informed. I said, she replied, sharper, we don't print logs. Malik kept his voice calm. I didn't ask you to print it. I asked you to check it. Denise paused, then typed again, fingers tapping harder now. Her face stayed neutral, but her shoulders tightened. She stared at her screen longer than before. Malik watched her eyes move left to right, like she was reading something she wished she didn't have to read. Then she leaned back, chin lifting slightly. No package, she repeated. Malik held still for a moment. He could feel his own pulse in his fingertips. He chose his next words carefully, because he knew how power worked in places like this. If you spoke too softly, you disappeared. If you spoke too firmly, you became aggressive. You had to walk a narrow, unfair line. Could you, Malik said, confirm whether Box 214 had any overflow packages placed in the hold area yesterday morning? Sometimes they get put on the wrong shelf. Denise exhaled loudly, theatrically. Sir, we do not have your package. A white woman in line behind Malik spoke up, her tone dripping with fake reasonableness. Maybe you already picked it up and forgot. Malik didn't turn around. He knew that move. The crowd volunteering explanations that made them more comfortable. If Malik was wrong, then the system was fine. Denise seized on it. Yes, she said. People forget things all the time. Malik finally turned his head slightly, not to fight the woman, but to face the reality of the audience. A few people avoided his gaze. A few watched with mild interest. One older man looked sympathetic, but said nothing. Malik turned back to Denise. Okay, he said, voice quiet but firm. Then let's do this properly. Denise's eyes narrowed. Do what? Malik slid another paper under the glass. This one was a screenshot printout of the tracking page with the phrase, delivered to P.O. Box, highlighted. This package, Malik said, was scanned as delivered. If it's not in my box, then it was either missorted, misdelivered, or held. Those are the options. Which one is it? Denise's cheeks flushed slightly. She looked past Malik again, as if hoping someone else would handle him. No one did. Sir, she said, voice tense, you need to file a claim. Malik nodded. I will. Then he added, and for the claim, I'll need documentation of the scan log and the internal delivery event, so it can be investigated. I'm requesting it now. Denise stared at him. The silence between them felt thick. Finally, she said, we don't give that out. Malik didn't argue the sentence. He didn't debate her policy. He shifted to the truth that couldn't be dismissed so easily. I run a business, Malik said. This package affects my contract. If it's lost because of an error here, I need accountability. Denise's mouth hardened. Are you accusing me of something? Malik's eyes stayed steady. I'm accusing the process of failing, he said, and I'm asking you to help fix it. Denise looked like she wanted to snap back, wanted to put Malik in his place the way institutions often tried to put black men in theirs. Instead, she stood abruptly. I'm going to get my manager, she said, tone clipped. Step aside. Malik stepped to the side, but this time it wasn't surrender. It was strategy. He stood near the end of the counter where he could still see the back door. He watched Denise disappear through it, her shoes squeaking once on the tile. The line resumed moving. People glanced at Malik as they passed, some with annoyance, some with curiosity, some with that quiet discomfort that came from seeing conflict you didn't want to admit existed. A white man shipping a box said under his breath, always something. Malik heard him, let it pass. He pulled out his phone and opened his notes. He typed the time, 1:12 p.m. He typed the clerk's name, Denise. He typed the key phrase, no package, refused scan log. Documentation wasn't drama. Documentation was protection. A minute later, the back door opened again. A man stepped out behind the counter. White, mid-50s, thick mustache, USPS badge clipped to his belt like a symbol of command. His name tag read, Mr. Harrison. He didn't smile. He looked at Malik like he'd already decided the story. Denise hovered near him, arms crossed. She whispered something to him, eyes flicking toward Malik, as if passing along a warning. Mr. Harrison approached the counter with slow authority. "You're having an issue with a package?" Malik walked back to the window, posture calm. "Yes, sir. Tracking shows delivered to my P.O. box yesterday at 10:17 a.m. But nothing was in the box. I'm requesting the scan log details and for someone to check the hold shelves." Mr. Harrison's eyes narrowed slightly. "We don't provide internal logs." Malik expected that. He nodded. "Then can someone check the hold area for overflow? It may have been misshelved." Mr. Harrison leaned on the counter, voice lowering in a way that sounded reasonable but carried threat underneath. "Let me be clear. My clerks know what they're doing. If the item isn't there, it's not here." Malik felt the old anger flare, not because of the words alone, but because of the certainty. Because certainty was often used as a weapon against people who didn't have the social power to challenge it. Malik's voice stayed level. "Respectfully," he said, "my tracking isn't a feeling, it's a record. If your system says it's here, then it's somewhere in this building." Mr. Harrison stared at him for a long moment, as if weighing whether Malik was worth the effort. Then he said, "You want us to shut down operations and search because you think something is missing?" Malik's eyes sharpened. "I want you to follow procedure," he replied. "The same procedure you'd follow if anyone else came in with a delivered scan and an empty box." Denise's lips tightened. Mr. Harrison's nostrils flared. The line behind Malik went quiet, people sensing something they didn't want to name. Mr. Harrison straightened. "Fine," he said, voice cold. "We'll check." He turned to Denise. "Print the scan history." Denise's eyes widened slightly. "We don't—" "I said print it," Mr. Harrison snapped. Denise hesitated, then turned back to her computer. Fingers moving fast now, not careful. Malik's heart beat steady. He watched the printer behind the counter cough to life. Paper slid out. A thin strip of reality. Denise ripped it off and handed it to Mr. Harrison like she hated the paper itself. Mr. Harrison glanced down. His face changed. Not dramatically, but enough. The kind of change you see when someone realizes the story they chose isn't going to hold. He read silently, then looked back up at Malik. "What's your box again?" he asked. 214, Malik said. Mr. Harrison looked back at the paper. His jaw tightened. Then he turned toward the backroom door. "Come with me," he said to Denise, and his tone made it clear it wasn't a request. They disappeared into the back. Malik stood there, hearing the baseless silence of a government building, feeling his own breathing, watching the line resume as if nothing had happened. But something had happened. For the first time, the institution had to look at evidence instead of assumptions. A few minutes later, the back door opened again. Denise emerged holding a medium-sized brown box. Her face was stiff, eyes fixed forward like she didn't want to look at Malik. "Mr." Harrison followed, holding the printed scan log in his hand. He placed the box on the counter and slid it toward Malik. Malik's hands didn't tremble as he pulled it close. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat. "It was placed on the wrong shelf," he said, like the words hurt. "It happens." Malik looked at the box label. His name, his P.O. box number. Clear as day. He didn't smile, not because he wasn't relieved, but because relief didn't erase what just happened. He looked up at Mr. Harrison. "I appreciate you finding it," Malik said calmly, "but I want to understand something." Mr. Harrison's eyes narrowed again, defensive. "What?" Malik kept his voice soft enough to be safe, firm enough to be heard. "When I first asked, I was told there was no package. Not, 'We'll check.' Not, 'Let's investigate.' Just, 'No package.' And it was here the whole time." Mr. Harrison's face tightened. Denise stared at the floor. Malik let the silence sit, because silence was sometimes the only way to force people to feel what they wanted to skip. Then Malik added, "If I hadn't pushed, would anyone have looked?" Mr. Harrison didn't answer. Denise didn't answer. But Malik didn't need an answer. He could read it in the air. He picked up the box and tucked the scan log printout into his folder as if it mattered. Because it did. Proof didn't just solve problems. Proof kept them from being rewritten later. As Malik turned to leave, he felt eyes on him. The line watched. Some people looked embarrassed. Some looked annoyed. One older black woman near the back gave Malik a small nod. Quiet solidarity, no words needed. Malik pushed through the glass doors into the daylight. Outside, the sun was bright. Too bright after the fluorescent cave. He stood for a moment on the steps, box in hand, feeling the weight of it. Not just the product inside, but the truth around it. He opened his phone and typed a message to the production company. Package recovered. USPS misshelved it. Delivering to you today. Then he paused, because this wasn't just about a package. It was about how easily systems denied you until you showed them paperwork. About how calmly people could dismiss you and call it policy. About how exhausting it was to fight for basic accountability. Malik looked back through the post office doors. Through the glass, he could see Denise already helping the next customer. Her expression reset to neutral. The moment filed away like it never happened. Malik tightened his grip on the box and walked toward his car, determined not to let this be just another story he swallowed. Because next time, it might not be his package. Next time, it might be someone else's chance. And Malik was starting to understand. When you fight for your own truth, you make room for other people to have theirs too.